Hello and welcome to another episode of Attacking Third, a CBS Sports soccer podcast. I'm Sandra Herrera, lead NWSL writer for CBS Sports, joined today as always by my colleague and co-host Lisa Roman, broadcaster and analyst for CBS Sports. On today's episode, we have an NWSL weekend recap for everyone. Got some games to get through. The final month of the season is it's getting spicy down the stretch, so let's get ready to talk about that. But before we take a deep dive into everything, just want to remind everyone, if you're joining us live, you can watch all of our Attacking Third episodes, previews, recaps, interviews, all on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube page to get notified whenever we go live. YouTube.com/attacking third. We're back. Lisa, how you doing today?
I'm good, Sandra. You said it. The fact that the NWSL is down the stretch, spicy things are happening. This weekend was pretty spicy, definitely hot and spicy across the league. It was really good to watch, really fun to see a lot of different things in action after that international break. It's always great to see some players come back a little bit fired up, a little bit ready to go, reeling and dealing to play for their club teams. I am good. Happy to be back for this one. Not as many games this weekend as I would have liked to have, but we'll get into all of that. How are you? I know you were dabbling in a bit of a conference this weekend, running it around town. How was it?
It was good. Yeah, that's like apparently the thing that I do now. Love to attend conferences. This one was cool, a little bit different energy. It was actually local here in Chicago, so definitely different from when I was in Vegas. But it was fun to chat with you. There, technically live from a hotel room in Chicago, so that was cool. And I guess that's maybe where we should start. We should start with a little bit of a programming note. Quite frankly, when we were preparing for the weekend slate of games over the course of last weekend, one of the things we were doing was really expressing our excitement for the return of WSL and the fact that Paramount Plus is going to be the home for so many of the games this season. And all the coverage that we're going to start kind of integrating within Attacking Third. But over the weekend, it was announced that Queen Elizabeth II has passed away. And in light of her passing, the WSL and really all soccer of around the FA was said that all the matches will be postponed. So not a ton of sports action happening out of Great Britain, and that also impacted Women's Super League. So we will have more information about that as things come to light. Hearing September 19th might be a day in which we start seeing some matches take place again. But again, once there's official confirmation of that, things we'll share that information with everyone. Yet in the meantime, we'll just have a placeholder in our hearts for Women's Super League when it finally kicks off, and we'll be able to chat about that a little bit more in depth. But that doesn't mean that there wasn't soccer that didn't take place over the weekend. We still had a ton of NWSL action to take a look at, and some news, quite frankly, that we got to chat about as well. So let's start with the news before we actually get into the recap of NWSL matches. The United States women's national team announced this morning that they are going to be headed to Spain in October to sort of close out the European leg of friendlies. So in case you forgot, need a reminder, the next set of matches that's going to be lined up for U.S. women's national team here will be in Europe. There's already been a lot of excitement around the fact that they're going to be facing England on October 7th. And when that was initially announced, it was said, hey, that's actually going to be a pair of friendlies, but we've got a team to be announced at a later date. Later date is today. And so it's not only going to be the Lionesses that they go up against, it's going to be Spain as well. So a lot of excitement, I think, around these duos of the duo of games that's going to be taking place in Europe. I was curious for a long time who that other team was going to be, and now we know.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was going to be a team around England, if it was going to be someone like France, but the fact that it's Spain who in the Euros, in the quarterfinals played against England of the Euros and almost knocked them out. This is an incredibly talented Spanish side, and I am loving watching these friendlies come up, because they're literally right around the corner, October 7th and then October 11th. So the United States team will head overseas to do that. But it's only the fourth ever meeting between Spain and the U.S., between these two sides. And that's pretty interesting. The first one in 2019. So
Yeah.
having a little bit more recent competition with this side and not seeing them that often, also a top contender in the Euros. This is the competition that Vlatko Andonovski needs to be getting for this side, especially heading into a World Cup year. I mean, these players need this type of competition, and this is it. I'm really, really excited for this match to come. I mean, as you mentioned, when it was announced that the U.S. was going to play England, those tickets sold out immediately. But now the fact that there's another really, really high-powered competition between Spain and the U.S., like, this is going to be a fantastic, fantastic October FIFA window.
Yeah, it's two very good teams that they're going to be going up against, and I love that they're going to be going up against those teams in their respective countries. I think that's also, that extra layer, that additional added level of a challenge to sort of prepare for. The mental side of things. Quite frankly, it's this team has been working together for quite some time, and I would imagine that we're going to see some similar faces when those rosters do drop, because the timeline and build up to the World Cup is going to be a lot about building the chemistry amongst these teams. And so how are they going to play in front of crowds that are not necessarily pro U.S. women's national team? So exciting time for all the nations involved, I'm sure, and we're gonna be keeping a close eye on those matches in October when they start rolling around. In the meantime, on the club level, let's chat NWSL. Let's recap a couple of big winners over the weekend. In this one, we had some pretty hefty score lines that we got treated to in some of these matches that we're about to break down for everyone. We're going to start with one of the bigger matches. We're going to start with the match that was on big network CBS. I think if you're a neutral of this league and watching this type of game, I think it had a little bit of everything for everybody, quite frankly. Washington Spirit defeating San Diego Wave FC 4-3. And doing
Sandra,
that,
say it again, louder for the people in the back.
look,
Washington beat San Diego. It's their first win since May.
May 1st. It's they have broken a ridiculous winless streak, we should say. Winless in 17 matches, no more.
Oh.
They've got that elusive win that they've been chasing for quite some time.
I mean, 17 is just a lot of matches.
That's a lot. It's a lot of games to go without a win. 10
Mhm.
draws is, that's a lot of draws to have. And this was, listen, being able to watch this one, just like turn on my TV and have it on CBS. I was like, let's go. I was like so locked in and ready for this game. And both of these teams delivered. Quite frankly, like I said, again, if you're if you were just sort of a neutral watching this, was probably something that got you really, really amped. And you're looking at the scoreline and you're like 4-3. This was just like all offense, just vibes. Like everybody just like, you get a goal and you get a goal and you get a goal. But I think, in terms of the timeline of where we are right now, we see this San Diego team trying to, chase down some history. They've been fluctuating, in that upper half of the table, between 1 and 3 in terms of the spots that they're at. And then you've got this Washington Spirit side that, they've just been in mostly the bottom half of the table.
Mm-hmm.
So, what were some of your big takeaways out of this one, Lisa, whether it was performance or otherwise?
I mean, this always happens when teams are on big CBS. This was a 1:00 Saturday match. The teams show up and they show out, and it was truly fun to watch. I mean, this game was just fantastic. Heading into it, Andy Sullivan, defensive midfielder for the Spirit, was listed as unavailable, not available for this game. And that kind of concerned me a little bit heading into this one. But ultimately, they're excuse me. Washington's able to kind of work around that. I mean, they played so much this year in July without a lot of their internationals. But this game was just back and forth, and it started early on. I mean, San Diego putting a lot of pressure on them, but Washington getting an equalizer right at the beginning of this game because Shaw gets the opening goal. Jaden Shaw, who second game for San Diego, scores a couple in this one. So the fact that this type of player in Jaden Shaw at 17 years old is making this big of an impact is fantastic. We got to talk about Amber Brooks, right? I love when defenders get goals. She didn't get one, she got two. Truly like a fantastic game for Brooks. Like really her first goal was just like a little bit of a toe poke, and that's all they needed, right? Like that's all it took. If it was a shot, it would have been deflected. Just a toe poke, it gets in. Then she gets the second one just a few minutes later. The fact that at halftime it was 3-1.
Oh my goodness.
Truly,
oh my goodness.
Truly crazy to think about. Alex Morgan ends up getting a brace in this one as two. So she ends with 15 goals on the year. She's 5 for 5 on penalty kicks. So don't give San Diego a penalty kick when Morgan's on the pitch because it's going in the back of the net. I think Tara McGeown had a fantastic game. She's one of the players we highlighted in the preview just to know that she can make such a big impact in games for Washington. This game had a little bit of everything, and I loved it. Drama, penalty kicks, great goals, cheeky goals, sloppy goals. I loved it.
Fouls. I'm like fouls. Some people think missed fouls as well. Cards definitely issued in this one, right? It was
all over the place.
Physicality that maybe kind of came in down the stretch of this match. But I think if you're, again, we're talking about certain matchups down the stretch here. I think if you're looking at certain teams in different phases of their seasons, what can come out of some of these matches. And I think if you're one of these sort of bottom half table teams that necessarily isn't eliminated, or trying to sort of close out your season in a more competitive manner, going up against, an upper half table team that are kind of jockeying for position, between 1 through 6. We're probably gonna get maybe a few more of these type of matches. I don't know if we're gonna be ending in 7-goal score lines, but in terms of the level of competition, in terms of the fight and the spirit, no pun intended, but that we might be seeing in some of these games, I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing some similar things down the stretch. I think those are some of the big takeaways, right? I thought it was a really good game from Rodman. I thought she was a menace on the pitch for the Spirit and giving fits to the back line of San Diego. And I think Alex Morgan adding to this total goal score in terms of the golden boot rate that we're all kind of keeping an eye on. Yeah. It looks like she's kind of is she pulling away with this? I mean, there's still a handful of games left here for some players to make an impact. We see Sophia Smith still kind of right behind her, and Indiana Ordonez as well. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at this, Alex Morgan, 15 goals, Diana Ordonez, 11, Smith, 11, Ashley Hatch and Pugh, both with 8. Yes, I mean, Morgan is pulling away. 15 to 11 is a bit of a difference in terms of how many games are left to play in this season, right? Like that's obviously what you have to look at. San Diego already at 19 games played, whereas North Carolina, they're at 17. But the way that Diana Ordonez is dealing with a bit of a knock, still trying to get back into the swing of things. Like, yeah, this is Alex Morgan's golden boot race at this point. And she's had people come really close. She's been tied at the top. But when she's scoring a game, it's really easy for her to continue to rack up these goals. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't doubt it if she wins at the end of the year.
Yeah, we'll be keeping an eye on it for sure. Exciting times coming out of that match between the Spirit and the Wave. But we've got another big winner over the weekend with another massive scoreline. North Carolina Courage going up against Racing Louisville FC. This one ending in a 6-goal scoreline, 5-1. All 3 points going to the Courage in this one. Lisa, I believe, if memory serves me correctly, we both had the Courage this one in terms of our pick. And I think in the previous match, I think we both went San Diego as well. Love to be incorrect and talk about that, but also like to be right.
We got a lot of tweets at us like, hey guys, keep picking against Washington. Listen, like they finally did it. We love to see the wins. Like
we all got jobs to do. Listen, we all got roles to play, right? And that we're just doing ours. Courage taking all 3 points in this one. We made a correct pick, in this match. This one, I think maybe let's start with before we start talking all about the big winners in this one. I think this match, at least I think it effectively eliminates Racing
Yes.
Louisville from playoff contention. So we now have two teams eliminated from vying for a spot in the 2022 playoffs. It's both Louisville and Gotham. We'll chat a little bit more about Gotham, but Louisville effectively out of contention to make a run at the playoffs, and they just sort of close it out with a massive loss.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure if there's a lot here to sort of build off of for this team going into the next week. I mean, a 5-1 scoreline can sometimes be a little bit demoralizing, especially if you're a team that just kind of hasn't been clicking at the moment. They've been picking up a couple losses, and it turns out they've been picking up losses with these kind of massive scorelines. So this is another scoreline where they're sort of losing a game by 4 goals, right? They had that 4-0 loss to Chicago as well. And I think, if you're looking at the Courage side of things, obviously you're still making a push for that upper half of the table.
So as you mentioned, I mean, with this Racing Louisville side, even it's there's not much to come from this, right? Like it's almost like, all right, let's finish out the season. We're out of playoffs. How can we build on next year? How can this team start establishing a foundation to move forward with? Because even the lone goal that Racing Louisville got in this 5-1 beating by North Carolina, it was already 3-0 at that point. The goal came in the 72nd minute, and it came off of a bad play by North Carolina, a really bad turnover and a mispass in the back that Nadia Nadim can just jump on. But even like the lack of energy from her after she scored that goal was a little bit like understandable of like, yeah, we're not winning this game. Like this is a bit of a struggle. But when you look at the North Carolina side of it, this is a team that has a bright future. I mean, they can score so many goals. They have 5 in this one, which is insane. Caroline, she ends up getting a brace in this match. Tess Bodie ends up getting her first NWSL goal. We talked about her in the preview of this one because I think that Tess Bodie is a player that's come in for North Carolina and made a difference. She's been an impact for this one. But the Dabinia combinations with Caroline, it's really fun to watch. There's a PK in this one. Of course, Dabinia takes it and finishes it. So a brace for Caroline, a brace for Dabinia. Tess Bodie ends up getting the 5th one for North Carolina. And it started early, right? Like at 9th minute is when North Carolina got on the board first. And they just kind of ran away with the game towards the end of this one. And it is a bit sad, a bit of a heartbreak for Racing Louisville. But I think this is a team that can maybe try to play spoiler for some teams down the stretch. But honestly, I say they just look ahead to next year. They look ahead to what they can do, maybe try out different formations. We already saw that playing a bit of a box in their last couple of games in that midfield with a 4-2-2-2. Try that out. Keep going with that. See where different players fit in around the pitch and how this team can grow moving forward. I mean, I think that's the bottom line for Louisville.
Yeah, I'm with you as well. Shout out to Lucy here. I love this North Carolina Courage. Love that. The Brazilian international is having a massive game in this one for the Courage, and obviously a team that we're going to continue to keep an eye on as this win bumped them up in the standings and knocks a team like Orlando Pride a little bit further into the bottom half. So with the Courage having an extra game in hand, it's going to get exciting down the stretch here. Something that we're going to absolutely have to pay attention to. Something else that we're going to pay attention to with movement happening in the standings this weekend. Kansas City Current moving into first place on the league table after a 1-0 win against New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC. Gotham FC, the other team that is officially eliminated from playoff contention based off of their previous match, quite frankly. So already kind of going into this game and maybe having a different mindset going into this one, right? Yeah. We're talking about sort of just closing out your season's strong competitive and honestly I think again to talk about the losing side first before we talk a little bit about the winners and how they did. I think we're starting to see a little bit of that difference. I think for this Gotham team, I think that's something that we were looking for. We were looking for more competitive games, from this team, different body languages and energy from the players when they're going out there and taking the pitch. And I think we're finally seeing that a little bit.
Mhm.
I think when you've got nothing to lose, you start maybe playing a little bit differently, and maybe that's what we're seeing a little bit with interim head coach human season, and the player sort of just saying like, hey, we got to close this out. And we didn't necessarily see that in some of the games from Gotham, maybe coming out of that July international window and then through August, where we just saw, again, just not good body language, not a lot of ideas on the pitch. And we're not necessarily seeing that anymore. We're seeing players go out there and be very, very competitive. And this one, again, another one of these games where we see it's a narrow scoreline for Gotham, and perhaps had the potential to be a draw. So something similar that we saw when they went up against North Carolina Courage, but KC ended up taking all the points in this one.
Yeah, Gotham had so many great opportunities in this one. They come so close. And Sandra, you just talked about it, how this team looks different and they look like they have a bit more spunk to them. 100% of that credit goes to Hugh Menzies, I think, because he's a coach that came in here and decided to shake things up, just give them a new look, new conversations in the training room, on the pitch, about new ideas that they can have. And we've seen a variety of movement on the pitch for this Gotham side. They're still not producing results, but I mentioned this a bit when talking about Racing Louisville. How can you learn? How can you teach these players, grow them in different roles, different understandings, and still use these final games, despite being out of the playoffs, as an opportunity and as ways to grow? Because we saw Ali Krieger for Hugh Menzies playing in that defensive midfield 6 role. Now we saw her in the center back in a 3-5-2. The first time we've seen Gotham in a 3-5-2 formation. So the options are there. And I think a lot of that credit goes to Hugh Menzies for trying to switch things up, trying to do things different. And then, of course, the players for buying into that and wanting to work hard and wanting to do it and create chances and look to get on the board, because they did just that. I mean, I think Anamanu had a good game of getting in behind, as we talked about it, the national team rub coming back from playing over the international break. A player like Anamanu comes in and she tries to get in behind. She tries to get on the board. I think Paige Monahan has done a fantastic job for Gotham this year. And Kansas City, I mean, Claire Lavogue is really a huge pickup for this Kansas City side. She had a fantastic game against Gotham. This for Michelle Bedos in goal for Gotham. She had a really good game, 5 saves on the night, but ultimately it's another penalty kick. We're like, how many penalty kicks is this throughout the weekend so far? Another penalty kick in this match. Haley Mace gets it. Lola Bonto is off the pitch at this point. So also no update on her availability and injury status, but Mace ends up getting the PK.
Yeah, I just, oh my gosh, I just looking at the kind of situational moment there in the box, it just sort of appeared to me, both in live in time and kind of on the replay, that Ali Krieger looked to sort of kind of have some things in control. And of course, in some of those situations, maybe you come in and help a teammate and try to close things out. But Lavoisier correctly kind of, reading the scenario in front of her and winning a foul. Not a good time for Jean to go ahead and commit the foul, but it's soccer, plays out that way. Sometimes
it was a really bad foul.
It was not a good decision. Not a good decision that was made.
Two Gotham defenders were on her, and
yeah. Not a good decision that was made by any means, and it ends up leading to the lone goal. The lone goal in this game comes by way of a penalty kick, which, quite frankly, maybe that we look at the other side of things and the Kansas City side of things in this game. It looks for a second here that they're going up against Gotham FC, and I think if you're this upper half table team, and you're gunning for, the possibility of reaching obtaining the shield or winning that first place and first week bye into the playoffs. And you're looking at things and you're potentially a top 3 team going up against the last place team. And you're going to want to look at those teams and say like, hey, we're going to go out there and beat this team. This is professional sports. There is nothing unfair about saying that you're a team that's, a very good team playing well on a bit of an undefeated streak of your own, and you're looking at the opposition and you're saying, you know what, we have a better roster and we're playing better soccer right now. We need to go out there and beat this team. And that was not necessarily the case for Kansas City Current in this game against Gotham. Again, perhaps the different shape that Hugh Menzies had got them in, kind of combating some things with Kansas City, and kind of looking at the subs in this one. Matt Potter making his subs, kind of around the hour mark, maybe keeping an eye on the fact that Kansas City has a midweek match coming up against Chicago Red Stars. So you're thinking a little bit about the quick turnaround as well. Sunday to Wednesday is not a lot of time. So bringing off a Karan, or bring on a Karan for Labonta, bringing on an Elise Bennett for a Kaiser, maybe trying to preserve some legs here for the midweek. And I'm not saying that's a little bit of a white flag and saying like we're going to concede this game, and if we play out to a draw, we play out to a draw. But clearly there's a game plan in place for this team. And so to have this kind of this goal come by, the way that it did via a penalty kick, maybe it's a little bit of a testament to, yes, the type of season that Gotham has been having, but perhaps as well Kansas City and the way they have been able to sort of manage these games and scratch out results, whether they're draws or wins, and scratching out these points. So it's a testament, I think, in different ways to each team in the season that they have been they've been having. And it turns out it's just a late penalty kick conversion was all the Current needed.
And frankly, it wasn't that pretty of a game between these two sides. I mean, there was action, there was shots, and there was moments of that. But the fact that Kansas City gets this 1-0 win, and they become first in the NWSL standings, is huge for a side that finished dead last year. I think that this Kansas City side, the Longs, Matt Potter, the players for the Kansas City Current should be very proud of themselves, because it's been really fun to watch this evolution of a team.
Absolutely. Love to talk about the big winners over the weekend. We have 3 more games to get through, and we're going to go through all of the action after a quick break.
The UEFA Champions League. 9 months of heart-stopping, hold-your-breath exhilaration. While Mbappe shines in the city of lights, Benzema's racking up the hat tricks, and the Reds want more magic in Liverpool. This ain't amateur hour. This is the best of the best of the best. This is the UEFA Champions League. Stream every match live on Paramount+.
All right, let's chat about the remaining 3 games that took place over the weekend. Let's start with Orlando Pride versus Portland Thorns, because we had a very special moment in this game. Portland Thorns taking all 3 points, winning 2-0 on the road against the Pride. Lisa, I think we both had Thorns picked in this one as well.
Yes, we did both have Portland taking the win in this one.
Love that for us. Tell me what you thought about this game.
Yeah, I mean, we both had Portland winning this one, and they did just that. Orlando, a team that has found themselves on a bit of a roller coaster towards the end of this season. They picked up wins. They were picking up points. Now as they head home to Exploria Stadium to play a handful of matches, Seb Hines, interim head coach, wanted to make it a very difficult place for opponents to come in and play. But they're still struggling against some of these really high level teams. I mean, you look at Portland and the depth they have of their bench, of the versatility of the players on the pitch, how they're able to kind of float in and out of different rotations and formations. Portland makes it look really, really easy throughout this year. So in this match, I think the fact that it started in the first half, getting on the board, Yasmine Ryan, a player that has just stepped up incredibly this year for Portland.
Yeah, absolutely. Yasmine Ryan has been a player that, we've both been keeping an eye on for Portland Thorns, and we really kind of felt that this was the player that was going to go ahead and maybe have an impact for this team, specifically during the midway point of this season. I remember when we were out in LA to go ahead and kind of kick off the CONCACAF championship that was going to be, taking place in July. And we were there for that Portland game against Angel City, where they came back and draw. And a huge part of that was the play of Yasmine Ryan. And I just really feel like this player has absolutely forced the issue, right? She's become a player that other teams have absolutely have to prepare for when it comes to looking at the Portland Thorns coming into town or going on the road. Like, it's not just like, hey, it's like, how are we gonna contain somebody like Sophia Smith? How do we make sure we go ahead and limit what somebody like Christine Sinclair can do? It's more than that. It's like you have to take a look at players like Yasmine Ryan and quite frankly Hina Sagita in this one as well. Two players that have stepped up massively for the Thorns in this 2022 season.
Huge. I mean, Hina Sugita has done a lot for this Portland side, but throughout this game, I think Morgan Weaver was a fantastic player for Portland. She ended up being the main reason that they had so many possessions and attacks, whether she was holding up the play or getting in behind. She ended up having 11 touches in the opposition box, leading Portland. It was really like a great game from them. No Aaron McLeod in goal for Orlando.
Yeah.
That kind of threw things off.
Yeah, I know that when we did our August team of the month, this was a player that you had kind of giving the accolades to a little bit, saying like, hey, you had a really good August for your team. I'm going to name you as goalkeeper of the month for my team, for my team of August. And, they had a really great streak in August if you're the Pride team. And, having somebody like McLeod unable to go ahead or unable to go in a game like this against the Thorns, I think perhaps, I don't want to say the writing was on the wall, but it wasn't going to be an easy task for this Pride team that has not only were they without somebody like McLeod, but in the midfield they were without somebody like Viviana Villacorta, someone who's also stepped up for this team very recently. And it was announced that she had a successful ankle surgery, but because of that surgery is going to be out for the remainder of the season for the Pride. So, I'm with you. I think in terms of looking at this game and in terms of what was perhaps won and what was lost, I think if you're looking at the Pride, obviously, not only did they suffer a loss in this game, they're now bumped a little bit further into that lower half of the table. Still on the outside looking in, not too sure if they can still find their footing and make a run, quite frankly, at this point. Mathematically, no, they're not eliminated, but they've got some very interesting games in front of them, and they're going to possibly be without some pieces, right? And then you're looking at the Portland Thorns, the other side of things. Not only do they get this 2-1 or 2-0 win over the Pride, they end out the game not only on that win, but on another positive note by reintroducing Crystal Dunn into the match and getting her some minutes.
Huge. This is insane. I mean, when this happened and I mean, frankly, availability report came out and she was not listed as out for maternity leave. I mean, this is amazing. She's a superwoman. I love it.
That was, I mean, quite frankly,
highlight of the weekend.
My favorite part of the game in this one.
Yeah.
I love it. Let's chat a little bit about another winner that took place over the weekend. Let's talk a little bit about Houston versus Angel City. Excuse me, these are the draws that we're talking about now, not the winners. That was the first segment. We got two draws to close out our episode today. Let's chat a little bit about Houston Dash and Angel City. This one closed out the weekend. This one a narrow scoreline, 1-1 for the draw in this one. But I like the goals that came out of this game. Massive stunner of a goal from Maria Sanchez. You love to see it. I love to see it. It was a beautiful goal. Quite frankly, could be a candidate for goal of the year. I don't know. That's just me. I'm just saying. Yeah,
this goal was fantastic from Maria Sanchez. So this match between Houston and Angel City in Houston, this was a really good battle, right? This was one of the teams and the matches that was potentially going to influence standings and kind of what happens at this one. Houston did drop a little. They're now at 4th just based on how the other teams did, and Angel City still in 7th right outside of that playoff contention spot. But I mean, the goal from Maria Sanchez was absolutely fantastic. But I think the way you look at like the overall game for this one between Houston and Angel City, it was right before halftime that Houston ended up getting this opportunity from Sanchez. And then the response from Angel City in the 49th minute, right at the start of the second half, was really good. So Like the fact that the middle of this game was a bit back and forth between these two sides, just it was good to see kind of how they balanced each other out, because this matchup was really good and really fun to watch. I think Jane Campbell had a really good match in goal for Houston. Simone Charlie ends up getting the goal for Angel City in this one, and a bit of a breakdown defensively for Houston's side. That
I was going to say, I'm going to walk that back a little bit. I don't know. Jane Campbell had a pretty big gaffe in this one as well.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, the defensive efforts there for Houston struggle. I mean, they've had lapses all season where they can't close out games, or they let up silly goals like that. And Simone Charlie just made it look so easy. That's why
Oh my goodness.
forwards put high pressure on, because little moments like that happen. Same for Racing Louisville. That's how Nadia Nadim got the goal. She was just waiting. It was an errant pass by North Carolina. And same thing here for Charlie. And she's able to just walk it in the goal, and these two sides end up splitting the points.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Simone Charlie has been really bringing it on for Angel City over their most recent weeks. It's like, this is a team that has been without Kristen Press and will continue to be without Kristen Press for the remainder of the season due to her ACL injury. But they've also, been without Sydney LaRue as well, who's been sort of navigating an ankle injury. But looking at Simone Charlie and her ability on the pitch, and not just like as a forward who was able to like capitalize on what defensive backlines give her, finding those pockets of space and exploiting them. But the leadership that it looks like she's providing this team right now on the pitch, I think, is not being talked about a whole lot. And you could just sort of see it in the way she plays on the pitch and in the body language in which she sort of is also providing direction for the teammates around her. You love to see that, I think, from a player who, in my opinion, I feel sort of taking those next steps, in their pro career. And it's cool to see her doing it with a team like Angel City. The draw, not enough to get Angel City up into the upper half of the standings. They've been on the outside looking in for weeks now, just sort of hovering around that 7th place. And they weren't able to make that leap because not only did they get a draw, but the Chicago Red Stars also getting a draw as well on the road against OL Reign. This is Chicago's 4th game away. This sort of concludes that kind of long road trip from August rolling into September here. But it almost sort of looked a little bit as if perhaps this game was going to go one way, and then it just didn't. You had a player like Mal Pugh, quite frankly, try to go ahead and make sure that Chicago remains in playoff conversations. We had both teams kind of feeling each other out a little bit here. First goal not coming until the 18th minute with Jordan Heidema getting on the board first. It's sort of like seeing some familiar things here for the Chicago team. These goals that they've been conceding have been coming off of, you talked a little bit about it with Houston, Lisa. It's similar for Chicago. There's been these awkward kind of defensive gaffes and errors that sort of lead to these breakthrough goals. And we saw it for Heidema, but Chicago kind of playing into that. Sometimes when you have that team get that first goal, it kind of shakes things up a little bit. And we saw things kind of level each other out a little bit. We saw Ella Stevens go ahead and get the equalizer for Chicago just ahead of halftime. And then I think if you're Chicago, perhaps the game plan was saying, hey, we're going to bring in a couple of our better players this year. Mal Pugh, Bianca St. George's coming into the second half and then going and chasing it a little bit more after the OL Reign. And we've got another penalty that took place over the course of the weekend. Someone's going to have to give us a total number of what we had for penalty kick conversions out of this particular week. But Danny Colaprico making it 2-1 before Rose Lavelle linked up with Megan Rapinoe for another banger. I don't know. It's for me, it's Sanchez and Lavelle. These were the two goals that were most beautiful for me.
They truly were stunning. I mean, the Sanchez goal was something special, but who would have thought Rose Lavelle is now an aerial threat? But she sure is. I mean, Rose Lavelle can find ways to score and
anywhere on the pitch, apparently.
literally anywhere on the pitch. Just fantastic stuff from the Chicago OL Reign side. When we picked these sides, I had a draw.
Good for
And
you.
you had Chicago in this one. So, of course, I got my prediction right. So I had to
I
throw it
love
out
it.
there.
I love that. I love that for you, buddy. I love this for both OL Reign and Chicago. Again, this is we're talking about points just separating number 5, number 6, number 7 as well in the standings, and everybody just sort of kind of staying in place once more with that trio of teams, just sort of closing things out with draws. And I think if you're Chicago, you're, perhaps you're like, it's too bad. We could have possibly had this win, a massive, massive game from a listener. Unfortunately, Rose Lavelle just said, I'm going to go out here and do it myself, and just got on the end of this ball from Rapinoe and just shot it from distance. And not a whole lot you can get on that, I think, if you're even the best goalkeeper in the world. But they are sort of keeping things at bay, and both teams walking out with a draw. And if you're Chicago, perhaps maybe you're like, hey, we didn't get all 3 points, but we walked away with the result, and you're walking away with welcoming the return of Morgan Gautrat. You're looking at your roster in front of you. You're looking at the matches in front of you, and you're saying, hey, what can we do to possibly really make a run here? And I have to imagine somebody like Gautrat working her way back into form is going to be helpful. And I think with a game like this that ended up shaking itself out to a draw, you're grateful to have a player like that who could maybe kind of settle the ball down and help you close things out. But we'll see where that takes Chicago. We'll see where something like this takes OL Reign. But that's it. That's a wrap for all these games. Some we got right, some we got wrong, and we love when we get them wrong because we get a chance to talk about them as well. And we always love when you join us live. So thanks everybody in the chat or just lurking and watching for joining us today and talking all things NWSL. Thanks as always for listening to Attacking Third. You can download, follow, and listen to us anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, anywhere. Subscribe to us on YouTube to know whenever we go live. And Lisa and I will be back later this week to chat all things soccer. Thanks for joining us. This was Attacking Third.